I have never seen anything so beautiful. The country around the river is full of trees, beautiful and green, and different from ours, each with flowers and fruit of its own kind. There are many birds of all sizes that sing very sweetly, and there are many palms different from those in Guinea and Spain. Those were the words said by Christopher Columbus when he discovered the gorgeous territories that are now known as Cuba. Cuba is a fun country with lots of history, which makes it the perfect travel destination. I have traveled to Cuba in the summer of 2018 and spent 5 days and 4 nights there learning about their culture. First, in my speech, I would like to talk about where Cuba is. Then, I would like to tell you a little about what Cuba's history, and finally, I would like to talk to you about how this all ties together and makes Cuba the country it is today. To start off, I would like to talk about where Cuba is located. To give everyone a sense of where Cuba is located, it is just 90 miles off the coast of Key West, Florida. Its neighbors are the Cayman Islands, Jamaica, and Haiti. Cuba is said to be the most beautiful of the greater islands. The geography of the island is that it is long and narrow, extending about 44,000 miles, making it just a bit smaller than the state of Pennsylvania. Cuba is bound by the Atlantic Ocean on the north and east. Cuba is mostly flat with rolling plains, rugged hills, and mountains in the southeast. The island is the largest country in the Caribbean. Havana, which is the country's capital, is also the country's largest city. Cuba has a population of 11.2 million residents. Now that I have told you a little about where Cuba is, I would like to talk to you a little about Cuba's history. Because Cuba has such a long history, I don't have the time to tell you everything about how Cuba came about, so I picked a few of the most interesting facts in which I think shaped Cuba today. Cuba was discovered by Christopher Columbus in 1492, but it wasn't until 1508 when another explorer named Sebastian de Ocampo discovered that Cuba was in fact an island. It was then colonized by Spain. The U.S. claimed Cuba during the Spanish-American War in 1998, but however, in 1902, the island gained its independence. During the Cuban Revolution, between 1953 and 1959, Fidel Castro replaced U.S.-backed dictator Fulgencio Batista. Castro declared Cuba was a socialist state in 1961. He remained in power until he became ill in 2008 and relinquished government control to his brother, Raul Castro. Now that you know a little about Cuba's country, I would like to talk to you about how their country shaped their culture today and why that makes Cuba a great travel destination. Life in Cuba today is fascinating. Thanks to a change in political climate, the low-quality state-run tourist industry is being replaced by private businesses owned by proud Cubans who love showing you their country. For a considerable length of time, Cubans were not allowed to practice any religion and were prosecuted for doing so. The scenario started changing in the 1970s, and eventually Cubans were granted religious freedom with certain restrictions. In 1992, an amendment was made to the country's constitution that allowed complete religious freedom in the country. Music is an important part of the Cuban culture. The music scene has influenced Cuba in both Spanish and African music. Some of the popular traditional music styles in Cuba include mambo, salsa, charanga, and a few others, but salsa being the most popular. With all that being said, I highly recommend Cuba as your next travel destination. I've talked about where Cuba is located and about Cuba's history. I've also explained how Cuba's history has shaped countries today. Now that you know a little about the country, you can make the decision to travel there yourself and see if you agree that Cuba is the perfect travel destination.